Hello, everyone. Today, I want to share an amazing story about how learning English led me to my dream, my passion, and my success. If you have big goals of becoming a doctor, engineer, lawyer, entrepreneur, or anything meaningful, then you absolutely need English. There is no question about it. English is spoken by more than 1.5 billion people worldwide. It is the language of travel, business, and the internet. If you cannot speak English, you may lose huge opportunities, like getting a better job, building global friendships, or enjoying movies and books in their original form. But don't worry, you can begin learning today and become part of this global world. If I was able to learn English and reach my dream, then you can do it too. My name is Sophia, and I come from Brazil. I was born in a small town in Brazil. My family was neither rich nor poor, just a simple middle-class family. We had enough to survive, but we couldn't afford luxury. My parents worked extremely hard every single day. My father drove a taxi, and my mother worked as a school teacher. They always told me that education is the key to success. Since I was a young girl, I had only one dream: to become a doctor. I still remember the moment that completely changed my life. I was 10 years old. I was at the hospital because my younger brother was very ill. He had a high fever, and we were all terrified. My parents were crying. Then, a doctor walked in. He was calm, confident, and full of compassion. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will take care of your son." I watched him carefully. He examined my brother, gave him medicine, and spoke with so much confidence and knowledge. After a few hours, my brother's fever disappeared. He was safe. In that moment, I knew that one day I would become a doctor and help save lives. But as I got older, I realized something very difficult. If you want to become a doctor, you need English, without any doubt. All medical books are written in English. All research is in English. Even in my country, doctors needed English to study, communicate, and work in hospitals. And my English was very weak. I studied in a public school where very little English was taught. I knew basic words like hello and how are you, but when I saw a complete sentence in English, I felt confused. I remember one day in class, my English teacher asked, "Sophia, can you read this sentence?" I looked at the book, and the words felt like they were moving. I couldn't read. I couldn't understand. I felt like crying. "I don't know, miss," I said quietly. The whole class laughed. That day, I went back home and sat alone in my room thinking, how will I become a doctor if I cannot even read a simple English sentence? I felt completely lost. But then, something happened that changed everything. One evening, my father returned home, tired from work. He sat beside me and asked, "Sophia, what's wrong? You seem sad these days." I looked at him and said, "Papa, I want to become a doctor, but my English is not good. Without English, I cannot study medicine." My father stayed silent for a while. Then he said, "If English is the problem, then learn English. Go somewhere where people speak English." I was surprised. "But Papa, we don't have money for that." He smiled and said, "We may not have a lot, but we have enough. Your dreams matter." That night, my parents and I sat together and discussed the best place to learn English. Why did we choose Canada? First, everyone speaks English, so I would be forced to practice every day. Second, Canada has an excellent education system, with some of the best schools for learning English. Third, it is multicultural, and welcoming people in Canada are friendly and kind to international students. Fourth, it was more affordable compared to other countries. Studying in the USA or the UK was far too expensive. but Canada felt within reach. It wasn't an easy choice. We were a middle-class family. My parents had some savings, but not a lot. They made a huge sacrifice. They used almost everything they had to pay for my flight, my English school, and my first few months of living in Canada. Before I left, my mother held my hand and said, "Sophia, we are giving you everything we have. Promise me you won't give up." I had tears in my eyes. I hugged her and said, "I promise, Mama." And then, with one suitcase, a little money, and a big dream, I flew to Canada. The moment I landed in Toronto, Canada, I felt like a stranger. The weather was freezing. In Brazil, it was always warm, but here my hands felt like ice. The food was unfamiliar. I missed my mother's homemade Brazilian rice and beans. The people were kind, but they spoke so fast. And then came the biggest challenge: English. At the airport, a man asked me, "Hey, do you need a taxi?" I panicked. I didn't understand. I just smiled and said yes. Then he asked, "Where to?" I had no idea what he meant. My mind froze. Finally, I showed him the address on my phone. That night, in my small rented room, I cried. What am I doing here? I can't understand anything. How will I survive? For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. The next day, I went to my English language school. The teacher smiled and said, "Welcome, everyone. Let's introduce ourselves." When it was my turn, I stood up. My hands were shaking. I said, "My name's Sophia. I'm from Brazil." I wanted to say more, but my mind went blank. My words got stuck in my throat. The teacher smiled, but I noticed some students laughing. I sat down and felt embarrassed. That night, I made a decision: no matter how difficult it gets, no matter how many mistakes I make, I will learn English. I created a plan. I promised myself I would do everything possible to become fluent. And that was the start of my English learning journey. I still remember my first few weeks in Canada. It felt like stepping into a completely new world, exciting, but also scary. Everything was different. Back home, I understood everything. Here, I felt like a baby learning how to speak. Before I tell you how I improved my English, let me share some of the strangest things I noticed in Canada. No school uniforms. In Brazil, students wore uniforms, but in Canada, kids were whatever they wanted. Some even came to school in pajamas, and nobody cared. People don't touch much. In my country, we hug, kiss on the cheek, and stand close. But in Canada, people prefer personal space. If you hug someone without asking, they may feel uncomfortable. The weather changes quickly. One moment it's sunny, the next it's raining or even snowing. Self-checkout in stores. In many supermarkets, there were no cashiers. People scanned and paid for their own groceries. People say sorry for everything. Even if you step on their foot, they say sorry. I found that so funny. Food portions are huge. One time, I ordered a small meal at a restaurant, and it looked like food for 3 people. But the biggest shock was the English. People spoke very fast and used slang I had never heard before. In school, I learned formal English, but in real life, people said things like, "Wanna grab a coffee?" Instead of, "Do you want to get a coffee?" "I'm down for that," instead of, "I agree." And, "That's so lit," instead of, "That's amazing." I felt like I had never studied English before. On my second day in English class, I was extremely nervous. The teacher gave us a simple writing task. I felt confident. I can do this, I thought. But when she returned my paper, it was full of red corrections. She said, "Sophia, your ideas are good, but your sentence structure needs improvement. You are thinking in Portuguese and translating into English, that's why it sounds unnatural. I felt frustrated. Speaking was even harder. The teacher asked me a question, and I knew the answer in my mind, but when I tried to speak, nothing came out. I felt like crying. Will I ever speak English fluently? I refused to stay weak in English. I knew that if I didn't improve, my dream of becoming a doctor would disappear. So I made a plan. I worked part-time at a small cafe to cover my expenses. It was not easy. I woke up at 6 o'clock a.m., went to school, worked at the cafe, came back exhausted, and still studied English at night. I missed my family. I missed my home. But every time I felt like quitting, I remembered my parents' sacrifice. I simply could not fail. The biggest breakthrough came when I stopped translating in my head. In the beginning, my mind always worked like this. I heard a sentence in English, translated it into Portuguese, thought of a reply in Portuguese, and then translated it back into English. It took so much time, but after 4 months of daily exposure to English, something incredible happened. One day, I was in a grocery store. The cashier asked, "Do you need a bag?" And without even thinking, I said, "No, I have one. Thanks." For the first time, my brain didn't translate. I realized I was finally thinking in English. If you are struggling with English, here's my advice. First, speak every day, even if you are alone. Use the headphone method like I did. Second, stop translating in your head, start thinking in English. Third, talk to native speakers, even if it feels scary. Fourth, surround yourself with English. Change your phone, movies, and music to English. Fifth, don't fear mistakes. Mistakes help you improve. And most importantly, never give up. I still remember the day everything changed for me, the day I realized, wow, and actually speak English. But before I tell you that story, let me take you deeper into my life in Canada, the struggles, the unusual things, and how I finally began speaking English like a native. I had been in Canada for 6 months, and my English was improving. I could understand people better. I could order food without fear. I could even talk to my classmates. But I still had one major problem, was afraid of speaking to native speakers. Why? Because they spoke too quickly, used a lot of slang, and I always felt embarrassed when I didn't understand something. I avoided conversations. If someone asked me something, I would just say, yes, or haha, yeah, even if I had no idea what they were saying. But I knew that if I wanted to become fluent, I had to face this fear. So I made a bold decision. One morning, I walked into my favorite coffee shop. I told myself, Sophia, today you will have a real conversation with a native speaker. No running away. I stood in line, feeling nervous, Then a girl next to me smiled and said, "Ugh, this line is so long, right?" Froze. This was at my moment. I took a deep breath and said, "Yeah, it's really long." Then she said, "I come here every morning, and it's always like this." My mind started racing. What should I say? But instead of overthinking, I simply replied, "Oh, really? I just moved here, so I don't know." She smiled and asked, "Oh, cool. Where are you from?" And just like that, we had a conversation. For the first time, I wasn't translating in my head. I wasn't afraid. I just spoke. After that day, something clicked in my brain. I realized I can actually do this. That moment gave me confidence, and confidence was the missing piece. Now that I had confidence, I wanted to take my English to the next level. I didn't just want to speak English, I wanted to sound like a native speaker. So I started doing something unusual, the shadowing technique. I began copying everything I heard. Whenever I watched a TV show, I paused, repeated the sentence exactly like the actor, and tried to match their accent. For example, I heard the sentence, "Oh my God, that's insane." I paused and repeated it the exact same way, copying the tone, speed, and emotion. I practiced this for hours every day. At first, it felt strange, but after 1 month, my pronunciation improved a lot. I also started keeping a notebook of my English mistakes. Every time I made a mistake, I wrote it down and corrected it. For example, "I am agree with you" became "agree with you." By reviewing my mistakes daily, I stopped repeating them. This was the hardest step for me, but I forced myself to make Canadian friends because I knew it was the fastest way to improve. Here's what I did. First, I joined local events. I attended free meetups for international students. Second, I used conversation exchange apps. I found Canadians who wanted to learn my language, so we exchanged languages. Third, I talked to my coworkers. I stopped being shy and started chatting with them more. And guess what? The more I spoke with real Canadians, the more natural my English became. Even though my English was improving, life was still difficult. I was always tired. Studying English, working part-time, and cooking my own meals was exhausting. I missed my family. I couldn't visit home because flights were too expensive. I struggled financially. Even after 6 months, I still felt broke all the time. One day, I had only $5 left in my bank account. I sat in my small room and cried. Why is this so hard? Am I making a mistake? Should I just go back home? But then I remembered why I came here. I didn't come this far just to give up. So I wiped my tears and said, "No, I will make this work." And I did. I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself waking up every morning in a beautiful apartment, looking at the city skyline, drinking coffee, and thinking, "I made it. I did it. I became the person I always dreamed of." That is my life now. But 5 years ago, I was a broke student struggling with English, feeling lost in a foreign country. To get into medical school, I had to pass the IELTS exam, and let me tell you, it was terrifying. The reading section was filled with long, confusing passages. The speaking section made me feel like I was being judged. The writing section felt impossible. I studied every single day. I practiced writing essays. I recorded myself speaking. I read complex medical articles. On the day of the exam, I walked into the room shaking. But then I told myself, "Sophia, you didn't come this far to fail. You know this. You worked for this." So I took a deep breath and did my best. A week later, I received my results. I passed. I held the paper in my hands, crying. I did it. I actually did it. That was the moment I realized that nothing could stop me. With my IELTS score, I finally got accepted into one of the top medical universities in Canada. But guess what? The real challenge was just beginning. Medical textbooks were in advanced English. Professors spoke using complex medical terms. I had to write perfect reports and give presentations. It was 10 times harder than anything I had faced before. But I remembered something: if I can learn English, I can do anything. So I didn't quit. I recorded my lectures and listened to them every night. I created flashcards for difficult medical terms. I joined study groups and practiced explaining concepts in English every single day. I pushed myself, and with a lot of hard work, I graduated as Dr. Sophia Williams. I walked across that stage, received my diploma, and looked up at the sky. This is for you, Mom and Dad. I made it. After graduation, I got my first job at a large hospital in Toronto. My first monthly salary, $8,000. When I saw my bank account, I couldn't believe it. I remembered the days when I had only $5 left and had to choose between buying food or paying rent. Now, I could afford anything I wanted, but money wasn't the best part. The best part was saving lives. One day, a little girl came into the hospital. She was sick, scared, and crying. I held her hand and said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I will take care of you." Her mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Thank you, doctor." At that moment, I felt something I had never felt before. I wasn't just someone learning English anymore. I wasn't just a student. I was a doctor, and I had earned it. Now, listen to me carefully. I know many people say, "Accept yourself as you are." I disagree. You should never accept being weak. You should never accept being average. You must change yourself, not for society, not for your friends, not for your family. Change yourself for you. Because let me tell you something: no one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your teachers, not your boyfriend or girlfriend. Only you can change your life. When I was struggling, could have made excuses. English is too hard. I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. But I didn't. I looked in the mirror and said, "Sophia, stop making excuses. It's time to work." And that's exactly what I did. If you're still watching this, it means you want more from life. So let me tell you the truth: learn English like your life depends on it. Because it does. If you want a great career, you need English. Stop being lazy. Get up. Open a book. Watch English videos. Do the work. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Talk to strangers. Make mistakes. Embarrass yourself. That's how you grow. Today, I live in a beautiful apartment in downtown Toronto. I wake up every morning feeling proud of myself. I drive my dream car. I travel to different countries. I support my parents financially. And most importantly, I love my life. But remember, I wasn't born lucky. I created this life through hard work. And you can do it too. If you're watching this video, you have two choices. One, close this video and do nothing. Stay the same. Keep making excuses. Keep dreaming, but never taking action. 2, start working on yourself right now. Learn English every day. Improve yourself. Change your life. The choice is yours. If you choose the second option, then subscribe to this channel, like this video, and let's begin your journey today. Because trust me, when you become the best version of yourself, it feels like the world is in your hands. Now go change your life.